Welcome to the plenary session on Monday. I'm Russell Handel, I'm one of your cheerful co-chairs. My other cheerful co-chair is not here. So our first speaker is Dr. Anthea Fudge, who's course coordinator of science courses, Science for Tertiary Learning and Introduction to Biosciences at UniSA College, University of South Australia, Australia, and is also currently undertaking a graduate diploma in digital education and learning. With a background in chemistry and physics and a PhD researching wine science, Anthea is passionate about encouraging students to engage with the sciences and spark an interest in learning and discovery. Anthea is excited to continue to explore the impact of blended learning and digital technologies upon the delivery of science-related courses within the enabling sector and STEM education. And she is speaking about iScience 2, Digital Literacies, eLearning and Digital Technologies for Higher Education. And we're going to have a wine tasting ceremony afterwards.
I hope so.
Okay. And I was reminded to tell you to wear the microphone.
Yes. Oh, good. Thank you, Russell.
Okay. I'm taking this one and this one, and you can take the middle one. Okay, that's fine. And I don't believe in these stupid signs.
Oh, okay, good.
Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. As Russell introduced me, my name's Dr. Anthea Fudge. I am from the University of South Australia, or UniSA. Please do just let me know if I'm speaking a little bit too quickly, as I do understand that the Australian accent can sometimes be difficult to comprehend. But today I wanted to talk to you about something that I'm really passionate about within science education, particularly in the higher education sector, all about digital literacies, e-learning and digital technologies. So just a little brief overview of what I'll discuss today, give a little bit of an introduction and context to my enabling education background, the sector that we're in Australia, knowing that this is quite a multinational and multidisciplinary conference. So I know we're talking to people from the US, from South Africa, from the European Union, and all different sort of other countries. So just wanted to give a bit of introduction and context. And then I'll go through a few things about digital literacies, the idea about globalization and digitization that I think just from all the speakers that we've seen over the last couple of days, we can see that we really are in a global and digital society. And then I'll start to talk about the changing needs of education, the idea that we are in a transition from a knowledge economy to a more conceptual age, looking at scaffolding students' learning, digital editions and BYOD, or known as bring your own device software, so the use of mobile phones in education, development of video content that can be quite important with visual and digital literacies, integration of this into STEM courses, a little bit about learning management system analytics as well, and then kind of what's next. So hopefully it will be a nice overview of what I've done over the last couple of years in my science courses. So I wanted to give a little bit of an introduction to myself. As Russell suggested, I do come from a science, chemistry, physics background, completed my PhD at a university in South Australia. And now I'm starting to move from a science researcher, as he said, in the wine science area. I started off as a chemist and a physicist. Then I moved into the wine science area, so that was more then industry-based, looking at analytical and organic chemistry techniques, but with the industry, of course, South Australia, big wine producing region. And now I'm moving to the educational sector. So for the last 5 years, I've been lecturing and course coordinator as part of some enabling education science courses in higher education at university. So I'm now moving into that educational space, and I'm lucky to be a part of a really multidisciplinary team in this enabling education space. So what I'll talk to you in a moment is the sector that we are in. We are looking at improving the lives of students that aren't able to directly attend university. So we have a couple of different courses that allow them to scaffold and step into that university sector. And so within that, myself, I'm part of the science chemistry, physics, biology, mathematics area, but I have many other colleagues from different sectors that we all work together. So it's quite nice, I guess, to not be a part of such a siloed environment that I was during my PhD. And also, after speaking to a few people at the dinner last night, it's been really nice to see the different perspectives people have from information technology backgrounds, business backgrounds, science backgrounds, engineering backgrounds, and digital backgrounds. So I think that's really helped me to give a broader perspective to understanding the educational space. So for those of you who don't know, South Australia is the southern part of Australia, quite little known, and that little dot there is where I'm from, Adelaide, so that's where UniSA is located. You'll probably be more familiar with the east coast of Australia, but that's where I am. And just a few pictures there of my wine research, just so you can see. So a bit of context about UniSA College. It was established a couple of years ago, as I said, to assist students to prepare them for university. So combining outreach and academic activities. It provides programs of a pathway into degrees. So we don't want to consider ourselves high school teachers. We certainly, the educators within our team, we're not high school teachers. We all have either PhDs or masters or have been teaching in the university sector. But we are providing this scaffold or step up from secondary education into higher education. So we are trying to prepare them for university. It's a place to build study skills, knowledge and confidence. And as I said, I've developed these science courses, so I'm teaching as part of those. So we're trying to prepare students ideally for, I think that is quite important for this particular cohort, an engagement and enthusiasm for science. As we know, some students from disadvantaged backgrounds may not have the role models, the family support, the lifestyle support to be able to encourage them into these different areas. So the idea or the context of the college is we are very much in the enabling pedagogy sector, so this idea of a supportive transition and inclusive practices. So we provide support in normally a one-year sector for over around 1,200 students. And we have basically trying to improve access by delivering these what we call pre-degree programs into the academic programs. A lot of them are actually non-school leavers, so a lot of our cohort hasn't come directly from school. They might have been in the workforce for a year or two, or they might have had significant either health problems or family caring responsibilities, but now they've taken that next step and they want to get back into the university system. A large number are also from equity groups. So from a couple of talks that I've listened to over the last couple of days, I think in the US context, you usually refer to those as minority groups. So they might be Latinos, they might be African American, or they might be, in the case of STEM, female. But for us, the context of equity is perhaps more students with an additional language other than English, so NESB students as we call them, or it might be students that have not done so well in their final year of studies due to different reasons, due to family reasons, work reasons, illnesses, disability or other access. And our other sort of equity groups would be including low-income earners. So that's kind of our sector that we're looking at to give a bit of a context. So it's a supportive program. I won't go through too much of this, but we are quite proud of this program and the science courses that I teach as part of it, where many of our completers that finish our program, including the science courses and other courses, actually then go into a UniSA degree. So they actually get in through to university. And as I've been involved for around 5 years within this space, I now have some students that are actually in their masters or have completed and have got jobs from it. So it's really, to sound cliche, you can really change these students' lives just by allowing them access to higher education and having that supportive transition. And within my sector, it links to a lot of different health science programs. So students in my area are wanting to graduate into STEM areas. So they might want to get into physiotherapy, information technology, engineering, the life sciences, or whatever that might be. So we're trying to prepare them for academic success. So the 2 courses that I teach are there as part of a wider range of those courses that we have. So we're trying to prepare students successfully for these STEM studies and also as a STEM graduate. And these programs, I think we know that you need some foundational knowledge to do well in science. You need to know about the atom. You need to know about the elements. You need to have some base foundational knowledge. But I think the teaching and learning these days is changing from just understanding that rote learning, memorization of knowledge into a more conceptual idea of how can we actually understand how to research effectively online? How do we know how to understand what resources online have biases? Is the information in the scientific literature correct? So the digital literacy skills, the critical thinking skills and the problem solving skills really do need to be integrated into the curriculum. So we're trying to provide them, of course, with a basic knowledge. We don't want to say that we are going to, for want of a better term, dumb it down to just provide soft skills. They still need that foundational science knowledge, but I think you can integrate it in an appropriate way. So, as I said, this idea of ever important digital literacies in this online world. So we're very lucky at UniSA that we are a supported institution, and it's been quite interesting to hear that with all of the different institutions around the world, some are looking at cloud-based technology, some are looking at their online management systems. UniSA, we're lucky that it's quite a young university. It's only 25 years old, which in the context of places like Harvard or Oxford or other is very young. But with that, they can be quite, I guess, reflective and quite reactive to the changing world of work and the changing world of careers and the changing world of this ever, I guess, increasing digital change. So there's a digital learning strategy that is a part of UniSA that has some really good key priorities. So I think it's been quite important as an educator to have that institutional support, which has been really helpful. So it focuses on the learning management system. So in our case, we use Moodle. I know a lot of other institutions use LMS systems such as Blackboard or Canvas or WebCT. So we use the Moodle system. And there is definitely a focus on blended learning. So we have both online and offline courses, both synchronous and asynchronous. And at the end of this year, there's actually going to be a UniSA Online where they're totally redesigning a way for a solely online course in certain sectors. Of course, you can't do everything completely online. And there has been a focus also on developing good infrastructure so that these collaborative environments can be used in the teaching spaces to really improve group work, communication, all that sort of good stuff. And I guess one of the key priorities that we're looking at is delivering a really engaging and digitally enriched curriculum. So there's a few new spaces that have been developed. You can have a look at some of those things there, but it just means that there is facilitation for this digital learning. What does it really mean for teaching? Is it combined, hopefully leads to a more interactive and fulfilling experience for both the student and the educator. And this is due to the ICT integration. So there was a participatory workshop the other day with Professor Swart. He was talking about the flipped learning strategy and their spaces that they've got. So the Jeffrey Smart building at UniSA contains much of those same spaces. So it really helps to bring the instructor sort of away from the space and focus more on the group learning environments where students can really develop their problem-solving skills and think critically to a deeper level. So we have this idea of a collaborative learning space with round tables to encourage that discussion and no kind of front of the room lecturers in there just at the front to just tell you everything and you're just expected to absorb it all. It's a lot more collaborative to hopefully promote discursive teaching. So some of these spaces, as you can see, the round tables, space for students to bring their own laptops or devices, and of course the big screens that then different groups can show their work to the whole class, which is really helpful. So that's just another shot there. Again, we can see the instructor is there, but it's not really part of the whole room. And just another different space as well. So big screens able to show the information. So moving on now, I guess, to this idea of what digital literacies are and why I think it can be so important for STEM education. So we've got a definition here that it is the individual and social skills needed to effectively interpret, manage, share and create meaning in the growing range of digital communication channels. So that's something that I think students these days really need to be a part of that. We know that they're already using these devices. I think if my mathematics skills are correct, of course, students now coming into higher education, normally it might be different across different institutions. They're around 18 years old or 17 or 18 years old. That means the students that will be joining my classes are now born in, as of next year, the year 2000. So they are the millennials. They have grown up using the internet, using smart devices. They live off their phones sometimes. So we need to be able to, as educators, teach them how to improve their digital literacy so they're not just using their phones for their Facebook, for their Snapchat, for their research, but we can teach them how to properly research scientifically, how to wade through the masses of information that is available online, and how to really do it in an effective way. And there was a couple of sessions that I was in yesterday where they talked about the importance of LinkedIn and importance of your social media presence. And I think that's something even in the science education sector, the students need to be aware of as well. So there are 7 elements of digital literacies that I think is important. So of course, media literacies. So within my science course, to hopefully engage and inspire students. If any new scientific information comes out and I see it on my news feeds, either on my Facebook or my LinkedIn feed, or I'm, of course, linked to a lot of different websites, I will tell my students, hey, get involved, get on the website for NASA or the website for the CSIRO, which in Australia is a scientific organisation. So link up to those feeds so your Facebook is not just filled with random things, but things that can be really important. So they develop their media literacy skills, and I try to introduce them to any new stuff that comes online. If I can integrate it into my lecture and then draw it back to some sort of scientific knowledge, that can be really important. There was, probably thinking of the US, there was the NASA twin study that was done where 2 twins, one brother went up to the ISS, the other stayed on Earth. They were there for a year and then they came back. That happened a couple of years ago. I had heard it on the radio, and the next day I incorporated that into my lecture just for 5 minutes at the start to start to inspire students. We were talking about some biology and chemistry at the time, and I taught them all about omics, metabolomics, and the informatics systems and that sort of thing. And then students the next week were coming to me and going, Anthea, have you seen this? Or I've researched this, or I've found this. So incorporating that into your scientific teaching, into the core-based knowledge can really excite and inspire students, particularly from disadvantaged backgrounds where they might not have those support networks at home. They might not have someone that's been to university before that can help them with their mathematics or scientific understanding. They'll just go, oh, that's too hard. So that can be really important. ICT literacy, of course, so showing them and role modelling with them the different devices. So I will try to use different technologies in the classroom, but if those technologies fail, sometimes the internet goes down. Sometimes it will buffer. If you role model the techniques of, oh, that's okay, this isn't working, we can go back to this, that can be really important because the students can feel supported to be able to fail if they need to. They understand the importance of failure, of learning and working through sometimes difficult problems and concepts. So if you are trialling new technologies, I think it's important not to be scared that the students will think, oh, it didn't work, oh, that's not very good. If you can then go, oh, this doesn't work, that doesn't go through, then we can work through. So digital scholarship, information literacy is all really important. So with this idea of globalisation and digitisation, we are moving in this education and knowledge acquisition. So as I said, it's an information age to a conceptual age. Everything can now be basically found on your mobile phone. We can get information for everything if we know how to search it. But do students know how to use keywords effectively and search past page 1 of Google? we need to teach them those skills. So higher education, STEM education, I think is critical to prepare the students in this wider context of ever important digital literacies. So what I wanted to talk about here, just find my slide, with this idea of sort of globalization and understanding. Just find it. So as I said, they are millennials. They are digital natives. It's been called that they're digital natives, but they don't necessarily know how to work through and gain knowledge with complexity and problem solving. So it's a completely different world, and we need to educate them to navigate it all correctly. There are differing needs in this conceptual age, where more than half, this is in an Australian context, of an Australian workers will need to be able to use, configure or build digital systems in the next 2 to 3 years. So they need to know those skills like coding and digital literacies. That 70% of jobs could be changed by automation. That can be a huge thing in the sciences. Your research lab could drop because it can be automated. But then those critical thinking, problem solving, complex skills will become increasingly important. And of course, we've got this idea of collaboration in this global world. Able to have those soft skills of communication, of teamwork, of working with other people is really, really important. So with my science course, I use kind of the theory of constructivism and scaffolding. So we try to scaffold their learning. As we know with motivation, with working through problems, you need to do it slowly before you can finally kind of understand and commit it to memory and do all those little things. And constructivism, basically takes the students' pre-knowledge and pre-ideas and builds upon that and scaffolds on it. So we try to tell the students, oh, well, you know how to bake a cake, you know how to add 2 cups of flour to 1 cup of water. Oh, that's just like balancing a chemical equation. So you can use those little techniques to help to scaffold it. So as I was talking about, it's these development of soft skills. We were talking about how teamwork is so important, how communication skills are ever increasingly important, and these digital literacies. So it's no longer just the knowledge points to memorise and understand. So one of the things that I teach as part of my science course is obviously the periodic table, very important, but it's not just something to be learned. They want to understand it and you want to excite them. But I thought instead of just going through and say, yep, learn the different elements of the periodic table, read through the textbook or go find information online, let's develop your communication skills to the wider audience. So we developed their skills in presenting. It was worth a small part of their component of the teaching. They just needed to do a short amount of research and then provide some material for the tutorial class. That then the couple of students in each tutorial class would present on an element of their choice, and they were able to take ownership of their own learning. So in the first couple of weeks, students presented their work and they might say, oh, it's the atomic number of this, the weight of this, and it has an electronic configuration of this, this, and this. The first few weeks, the students didn't really understand what they were saying, but they presented the work and we tried to link it back to the theory. But later on, as they developed their knowledge and skills, then the students were able to see their images, see the information and go, oh, I actually know what the electronic configuration means now, and then they can develop those skills there. So we had a couple of students do them each week across the semester, and the presentation certainly developed as the weeks progressed with greater understanding of concepts such as periodic table trends and the atom. So these are just a couple of examples of the really wonderful visuals and information that the students found out. So sometimes they had embedded short videos that they'd found online or GIFs or other visual images. So it was a really good way for them to take ownership of their learning and develop their presentation skills that will become increasingly important in the scientific world. So they basically were able to convey the ideas and information quite clearly and effectively, help to speak in front of others. And as I said, they started to understand and develop their engagement in their presentations as the weeks went on. And that was really important for this disadvantaged group because they were starting to spark an interest in researching and learning about these different elements. And a few more examples there, just of the really wonderful things that students came up with. So they were able to develop their learning and deeper understanding, which was quite important. There was also this idea about course redesigning and digital editions. So within our management system, we use tabs to avoid the ever-increasing scroll of death. I think that is quite important as you set up your course sites. Most course sites are online, and I think if they can be as clear and effective as possible, you'll get increased engagement and understanding. We also would have a weekly sort of news forum where I would post reminders. That is quite important. And of course, with these embedded activities, many of you will be aware of discussion boards where students can post generalised questions online, get feedback from the lecturer or coordinator, but you'll find once you develop that, the students start to give feedback to one another, and you can almost step back from that, and so they can collaborate and learn with one another. And it's always good when they can embed little videos or other things in it as well. Also, and thinking more so to a flipped classroom model, vodcasts and screen recordings were really important. So using personal capture software to record the generalised information that students, we don't really want to waste time in a lecture or tutorial talking about, but they can watch it prior to the session so then they can develop their knowledge. So starting to embed that flipped model. So of course students can pause, replay, speed it up, slow it down if they have language or learning difficulties, those sorts of things. So this was a short, I think 8-minute video that I did about one of their assessment criteria. There's also within the courses the introduction of bring your own device apps. So students, they're constantly on their phones. How can we interrupt them looking at other things and look at the educational content? So if they're going to use their device, we might as well be the ones that are putting the information on their device. So Kahoot is a free example where you can do these sorts of questions in class, but we also use Learning Catalytics, which was another bring your own device software that was embedded with the textbook. That allowed me then to pose questions either online or offline to the external student cohort and get instantaneous feedback. For these students that are somewhat new to this learning experience and higher education, the ability for them to be anonymous with their feedback, use a device that they're used to, was really important. You could pose a question, I could sit and wait at the front of the class or wander around. I could get instant feedback and it might tell me 70% of the students answered this correctly. Then I can probably spend 2 more minutes talking about that concept and move on. If I post a question in a lecture perhaps after I've spoken about a few key concepts and I find only 30% of them after giving them 2 minutes to respond to my pushed out question to their device, then I would say, okay, they probably have missed my key concepts there, then I can re-go through it and take the time. So it can mean that the lecturing is a little bit more just in time, but you can actually then understand what the students are actually getting through and which key concepts they aren't understanding. It can also be integrated into tutorials, where then if students get the correct answer or the incorrect answer, then they can be paired up and formed into specific groups. And then those groups will then go, well, they got the answer right, they got the answer wrong, discuss and see if you can come up with a solution. So this instantaneous feedback can be really important for educators as well. So as we know, we now spend, or particularly our students, spend a lot of time looking at screens. So trying to bombard them with content, we want to create content for them to watch on their screens. So producing videos can be quite helpful. That can be expensive, but I will talk about how it doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be completely polished or perfect. They do need to be short, possibly even less than 10 minutes. I produce videos about terminology, certain equipment, certain spaces used, and the students actually liked having the tutor or the demonstrator in the video. They found that they could then see that role modelling. Oh, if she can do this experiment and she's saying that we can do it, and even if we've never done this before, yes, you can get through it, they felt more comfortable then to attempt it. And that, of course, gave better preparation and confidence and hopefully learning outcomes and engagement. So what can an academic do to make reasonable video content? Looking to innovate, but with a time frame and a budget. I didn't just want something that would be a cool clip that was perfectly stylised and digitised. Realise that students will be more forgiving than you think. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be authentic. So video development went through, basically I filmed 7 videos over a couple of days. I had assistance just with people filming, but the rest I did, and were able to produce some really good videos, particularly for laboratory sessions. So a lot of students that come from low economic situations have probably never been to a school that has access to labs, so they're quite scared and unsure about it. So I made some little videos, quite short videos, talking about lab safety and a few other little things. Couple of screenshots there, 5 minutes left, very good. Setting up the burette, and a few results. I'll go through this quite quickly. They really enjoyed the familiarity of the process. They weren't overwhelmed. They liked that they could go back to watch it. It provided a clear and succinct explanation. It boosted their confidence as well. And for these, I guess, minority students to have that confidence to attempt questions and problems was really key. We also wanted to develop their digital literacies and how to write a scientific report. Nowadays, everyone, once you become a scientist, you have to present your research, you have to write it up. They are considered digital natives, but are they able to go beyond the first search page? So they need to develop effective search strategies. So what we did was we showed particular scientific databases. So the students are given access to the libraries, but so many times these online libraries, the students don't really know how to use them. They'll just revert back to Google. And unless you teach them how to use it effectively, I know in my PhD, that was when I learnt how to search online, how to troll through the information. And so if you can tell them how to search early on, they can then find quality academic information easily. So looking at currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, purpose, how to skim and scan, looking up keywords, relating it back to scientific knowledge. A few example scientific report topics. If you give the students that sort of broad saying, okay, find out something that you're interested in, they can come up with some really good topics, so give them credit for it. Medical radiation during pregnancy, how concussion impacts the human brain, and they tried to link it to their degrees and careers that they were interested in. So they're already now starting to search the literature. Gluten-associated disorders, so she wanted to get into food and nutrition. Prediction techniques of volcanic eruptions. Health consequences of obesity. So this was a student from a refugee background who was caring for family, and she wanted to go into the health situation or the care situation. And just a little quote there, provides both visual and hands-on learning, and there's a lot of material to go over if in need of help or unsure of work. So the increased confidence was gained in navigating these databases, improving their search strategies, and ICT and digital literacy skills were developed. So better prepared to undertake an undergraduate science degree, and also willing to then preference it because they felt more comfortable in this space. Nice little quote, I didn't complete years 11 and 12, so I really forgot what subjects interested me in school. But this course really rekindled my love for science. The last little thing that I'll talk about, a couple of minutes left, is this Moodle dashboard and analytics. So I think having instructors able to wade through what these analytics mean and close that feedback loop, look at iterations over the next years, see where students are struggling can be really important. So seeing if students stop looking at the course page after a cert on the weekend and then after the holiday break, do we then need to send them a reminder to go back and look at the information? Can we see how many students have engaged or not even logged on? Can that then prompt an outcome from the instructor to give them a call, say, why haven't you logged on? Do you have any support systems? Do you even know how to get to the course page? Sometimes it can be as simple as that, and these interventions by using analytics can be really important. One other really important thing is looking at course site visits. I've just deleted the students' names for privacy, so you can track student usage and react and respond to that, and view trends for reflection and how to improve it for the future. So for example, one of my course assessments is due in this 6th week. And one thing that we noticed was we correlated grades with the first course assessment and realised that it was the students who hadn't logged in after 3 weeks that then were doing poorly in the quiz and getting poor grades. So then we set up an intervention where if students hadn't logged in after 3 weeks, an email would automatically be sent to them because we knew that was a trend from the learning analytics to follow through. So we're starting now to really develop our analytics understanding. So what's next? Keep working with academic librarians and other educators to research strategies to work with these digital native students. Continue to embed these soft skills into courses in small amounts. So I still do teach them all about the physics, chemistry and biology, but these are just some little add-ons that I do. And integrate it further into the course and not simply leave it to other discipline areas. And just a little nice quote there, it exposed me to different fields of science that gave me the confidence to choose a specified science course next semester. Sometimes, as we had an instructor yesterday talked about, they don't know what careers are out there, they don't know what they could be doing. And if you can introduce them to these ideas, it can be really powerful. Also looking at producing other short videos. When you are producing videos, do keep in mind if you want to reuse it. Be quite generalised, no years, no dates, that sort of thing is very helpful. And going to see exactly why they like it as well. So, finished just on time, 1:35. Thank you for your attention.